Welcome to another sparkling edition of Plank of the Week, and this week with a bit of a difference because somebody, very wisely, has actually sent me a plank. So we're going to be able to award it at the end to whoever does win this particular edition of Plank of the Week. Now, I should be able to remember who sent it to me, but unfortunately I opened it and the person's name and address were on the envelope, but there was no note inside, so I'm sorry. Whoever did send it, thank you very much indeed. We'll get to that later. I'm delighted to say that today I'm joined by Neesom, a woman of many parts who's been in this very studio loads of times, as has Mahyar, Tousi, who's here with us as well. Both veterans of Plank of the Week. Both of them have been doing this for the whole year. In fact, you were probably two of the very first people that we did it on, surprisingly. So thank you very much for sticking with it, and it's been a hell of a week for planks, you'd have to say. Let's start, Mahyar, with you. Before we do that, though, let me just tell you, if you haven't done it, make sure that you subscribe to the YouTube channel and follow us on YouTube as well, and we'll get all the different videos that we put out every single day. So, Mahyar, what have you been thinking this week, plank-wise?
Yeah, so the first one, it's actually two people into one.
Yeah.
Tony Blair and John Major.
Yes.
Our favourite former prime ministers,
yes,
who still think they're relevant. Who think that, because they wrote an article together during the weekend against Boris Johnson's new Brexit bill, which is kind of the internal market bill about changing the withdrawal agreement, potentially. And so their plan was to write that, to start a momentum in Parliament and outside to stop this bill. Right. And they haven't realised that since 2016, every time they try to do something, it backfires. Yes. People actually decided to, because of that article, Boris got more support in Parliament.
He now hates Tony Blair, Yeah. I mean, which I think actually is a little bit unfair, because I thought Tony Blair actually, until, I know, look at her face on her, right? See? Until he broke international law and illegally invaded Iraq, which seems to be his problem with this particular Brexit bill, I thought he had been a pretty good Prime Minister. I mean, he's blotted his copybook, no question, right? And now I understand why people hate him because of Iraq. But up until that moment, he was all right, wasn't he?
It's just all the hypocrisy. There always was a lot of hypocrisy around him, I always felt.
Well, I suppose so, but there's a lot of hypocrisy around all of them, isn't there? I mean, because they were later joined by David Cameron, the bloke who got us into the mess of Brexit in the first place by being a complete plank. Gordon Brown, who wasn't even ever elected, who claims to have been Prime Minister of this country, and had to be dragged kicking and screaming because he was literally willing to do a deal with anyone to stay in Downing Street.
But that's the biggest problem.
And Theresa May, who was useless.
Theresa who? Yeah. Well, that's the biggest problem. So you got John Major. Well, first you got Tony Blair talking about Boris Johnson breaking international law. Yeah. And as you just said, he's not the best person to talk about international law. No. John Major himself, he's the guy who prorogued Parliament. Then when Boris tried to do it, said, no, that's a bad idea. What is wrong with these people?
It's hypocrisy, isn't it? It's straightforward hypocrisy.
It really is. I mean, you can't be any more hypocritical, I don't think, also than a man like Tony Blair, who now makes his fortune. I don't know what he's doing in terms of, the old sun lamps or whatever it is that he's doing to make his face permanently kind of orange, right? Nobody takes the piss out of that for some reason. They do it with Trump, but they don't do it with Blair.
Isn't he one of the highest paid speakers in the world?
Well, do you remember when he got hired to be the Middle East peace envoy, didn't he?
Yeah.
He then got a job with, I think, was it either Morgan Stanley or JP Morgan, one of the big financial houses. And I mean, he literally coins it in at a rate of knots. And his wife, of course, Cherie, the human rights lawyer, who makes about £1 million a minute whenever she represents people that should be thrown out of the country, but we get to keep them because of her. I mean, these are not people that we should be listening to.
But we should be grateful that Gary Lineker's looking after all those people for us, shouldn't we? I mean,
he still doesn't seem to have found himself a refugee yet. He's been looking for 5 years now.
Yeah.
Ever since 2015, he said he was going to take one in.
Yeah, there's a few hotels that there's a couple of them.
Well, he could pop down to Dover. A couple of hundred arriving every day. He could just pick one out of a lineup.
Lovely man. Lovely.
Yeah, still employed by the BBC despite being white and middle-aged.
Yes, I know. It's 1.74 million, is it?
That's something like that.
Yeah, I don't know how he's coping really on that one. Do you?
Again, he's got a couple of other jobs as well.
Exactly, that's the basic salary.
Yeah. Well, he's got a very big house to run. Very expensive sons to look after who don't appear to do very much for a living. Spend all their time in Chelsea nightclubs.
How do we move from Blair to Gary Lineker?
Seamless link there. I think something to do with possibly hypocrisy. Could be a theme here.
We better have your first plank then.
Right, okay, it could be pretty much anyone at the moment in the cabinet. I'm going to go though for Kit Malthouse, who's the Minister for Crime and Policing.
And policing, yes.
Yeah, he's done a really good job so far, hasn't he? Any case, he is one of them, and Priti Patel is another one, backing the rule of six.
Yes.
Which is, or the rule of snitch, as we're all now calling it, which is basically criminalising anybody and everybody who wants to see their family or friends more than 6 people.
Well, also anybody who's got more than 4 kids, effectively. I mean, if you happen to have made the mistake of having more than 4 children,
Yeah, well, this is...
you can't even meet them.
The thing is with this...
I mean, presumably you can't even be in the same house as them.
Well,
Can you?
this is the thing, isn't it? Everyone goes... I mean, Boris going, oh, it's very, very simple. This makes it clear to everybody. And it's like... No, it actually doesn't, because which 6 are you including? And then you can go out with 5 people from different households in the pub, which is rammed with other people you don't know. But you can't have your kid's birthday party in your back garden.
So if you've got 5 kids, for example, say, right, and you're the one that goes out to work because the mother's looking after the 5 kids, does one of them have to leave the house before you can go in?
Well, I mean, but you're in the family bubble, aren't you? Aren't
Well,
you
I don't
bubbled?
know.
Well, firstly, they've got rid of mingle. You can't even mingle anymore. That's one issue. My biggest problem with this whole rule of 6 stuff is that the cabinet got together. They were voting on it. They came up with random numbers. Initially, it was 8, and then a few of them went with 6, and then they were still discussing it. They're like, let's just pick 6. I'm like, it's not evidence-based. It's not backed up by science. It's just random political decision.
Every other country's got a different number
Yeah,
as well.
exactly.
Some countries have got like a few hundred.
Yeah.
We've got 6.
And why are we saying it includes babies and children, small children?
Right.
So if you're having a kid's birthday party and you happen to have a babe in arms, that counts as one of the people.
As one of your 6. It's like a sort of supermarket sweep thing, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
You know, no more than. Do you remember during? In fact, I fell prey to this during the first part of the lockdown when nobody could get in the supermarket, right? And I ended up somehow it all got a bit more relaxed, and I ended up going to a local Sainsbury's, and I thought better get some pasta. And my kids eat pasta all the time, right? So I picked up a load of pasta, got to the checkout, and she said, "Oh, you can't have this one." I said, "Why is that?" She said, "Well, you've already got 6 packets of pasta." I said, "Well."
Brilliant.
And I wasn't stockpiling. I just thought, I don't know when I'm going to be back. And they'll eat this in about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, it's 2 weeks supply of pasta with 2 hungry teenage boys and me, you know, and their mother.
They weren't to know how many kids you've got at home to feed in any case.
No, exactly right. It's not like I was selling them on the pasta black market, you know.
But the worst thing about the rule of 6 is all of them, including Priti Patel this morning, encouraging people to grass their neighbours up. And she said she would do the same.
As did Kit Morehouse. He said it first. He was asked by Julie Hartley-Brewer, would you grass up your neighbour? And he went, yes. Really?
This is not even common sense anymore. This is not the government encouraging people to behave. It's actually the government encouraging people to bully each other. We're creating a 1984 society within society rather than coming from the government.
It's only going to end in tears, isn't it? I mean, we're going to talk about COVID Marshals, I'm sure, at some point. But the day somebody comes up to me who I don't know, who starts telling me to do something, there's going to be a problem, I'm afraid, because I'm not very good at being told what to do.
You might be seeing an increase in hospital admissions.
I think, but obviously I would not ever endorse or recommend violence in any way, shape or form. But, you know, people will be upset enough to react.
It's just wrong, and there are people that are going, yeah, I'll do that. I would, you know, snitch on my neighbours, and I don't want to be living near those people.
No, absolutely not.
When all this started, we used to help one another. You'd go shopping for your neighbours. You'd drop stuff off for them. You know, you'd take dogs for a walk if they're old and they really didn't want to come out. It was a community spirit. We're all in this together, and now they're trying to divide us. It's creating even more division and hate, and with Brexit already, we've got enough of that already.
Well, it's like these people on social media who sort of, when they see, I know, Maya, you were out quite a bit. I mean, I'm going out because, you know, I think you've got to, you know, pay money into the economy to buy dinners, lunches, drinks, all that. And, you know, if you end up getting into an argument with some of these people who are sort of scared to go out, they're like, "Oh, you're going to kill me. This is what you want. You want to kill me." I'm not going to kill anybody.
You're going to kill
I just want to go out for, you know, for a nice meal. What's going on?
Exactly.
It's mad, isn't it? Absolutely mad.
It's
well, I'm going to move slightly away from the COVID crisis, although it's partly related. Philip Green, you know, the world's most hated businessman, who really is obviously quite an odious bloke.
And there's a lot of competition in that
There
market.
is a lot of competition, but he sort of rises head and shoulders above everybody. And I mean, when this story came out in the Sunday Times, I think I was listening to somebody's radio show, and they said, well, it would be Philip Green, wouldn't it? Because you would expect Philip Green to basically rip off. He's ripped off the furlough scheme. He's taken tens of millions of pounds out of the government's coffers, while at the same time sacking loads of his employees. I think about 300 of them. And while he sacked them and put them on notice, he somehow paid them at the reduced rate of their salaries, while still taking the government's money. And he was quoted as having said at a board meeting, "We're going to take the government for all the money we can." And that's the kind of bloke he is. This is the kind of bloke who puts everything in his wife's name, rides around the Mediterranean in a sort of £200 million yacht. And he's just odious. He really is. And he treats his staff terribly. Yeah. He owns Topshop. His company's called Arcadia. It's kind of, sell them cheap, pile them high type stuff. I don't object to that. And I really don't object to people being successful in business. Yeah. But there is a time, I think, when you just don't, take the mickey out of a scheme which is supposed to help people when you don't need the help.
Yeah, and all of this was done while he was on his yacht in the south of France as well.
Because, there are some companies who refuse to take the furlough money at some cost to themselves, but they thought that they would do the right thing. I think there was one company as well, which I can't remember which one it was, that gave furlough money back because actually they'd done all right during the pandemic.
But the problem I have is that the whole case is now well known because he's well known. There's a lot of kind of mini versions of him, other CEOs and other big companies that are also doing the same thing, but they're hiding behind him basically because he's obviously the only one who's been known. But there's so many of them like Philip Green as well.
Billions that's been accidentally or fraudulently misclaimed.
They seem to think about 10% of all of the claims, which is a lot of money, will be fraudulent. Well, I don't really blame the government for that because they did what they thought was right. Yeah. And if you're going to, take advantage of kindness and generosity, it's like you offering somebody a lift home in your car and then they steal the car. It's not really your fault for offering them a lift. You know what I mean? Anyway, so Philip Green's my first one. Who's your second one?
Going with Kay Burley.
You're brave. You're a brave man.
you better hope she doesn't find out.
I'm going to get cancelled, So Kay Burley interviewed Priti Patel this morning, and I have my issues with Priti Patel these days, with a lot of policies. But Priti Patel was sitting down. Kay Burley was sitting down. After the interview, Kay Burley stood up to talk to her colleague.
Oh, she was actually in the same room?
Literally. And then Kay Burley stood up, talked to the analysts, and then they started talking about Priti Patel behind her back while she was still sitting in the studio. And then they were saying a lot of bad things as well. They were saying, well, we still haven't heard an answer from Priti. Like, just ask her. She's right there.
She's right there.
But this is the Sky News version of, that's what they do. They trap you in and they spin their own versions. And this is a new version. I haven't seen that before. This is really good.
They've been trying to convince everyone it's a new show. It's the same show that she did before.
They just moved
it into a different studio or revamped the studio in some way. And she's wearing some particularly unusual dresses, I've noticed. The day one, I think she's wearing this very stripy sort of zebra crossing style effect, which doesn't really work. You do more TV than I do. I always think that, and you always look very elegant on television.
Thank you very
take the
much,
opportunity to say so. But the plainer the outfit, I think the better.
Just a plain
you
colour.
don't want a lot of patterns. You don't want a lot of sort of psychedelic colours going on.
Wear stripes.
No, and these were the sort of hoops. Not stripes up and down. They were sideways, which is never a great dress to wear anyway. But it was really distracting because all you could see was his dress. And you couldn't. Your eye didn't leave the dress because it was so kind of stark. You know what I mean? But normally in TV they would have had some flunky would have sort of come and tapped her on the shoulder and led her away, wouldn't they?
Yeah, but it's just she sat there. And to be fair, again, I have my issues with Priti's policies these days, but she's remained really calm and collected. If it were me, I would have said, I have the answer.
Did she not say anything? No. Did she not go, excuse me, I'm still here?
She's quite
she's feisty, isn't she?
Yeah, she's sitting in the corner just like smiling as usual. But then they're just standing there like talking about her.
Isn't this the other reason why an awful lot, and Piers Morgan will probably hate me for saying this, but reason why a lot of them don't go anywhere onto television programmes anymore, because effectively it's basically just bear baiting. Yeah. They're just trying to get you to react. Yeah. They're trying to get you to say something that's going to get them on their own news because you've said something stupid or you've said something embarrassing or you've given something up that you shouldn't have. And it's not really about actually getting information out of people.
Well, that's like those daily press conferences that we might now go back to. We had one the other day, didn't we? But it was all about the named journalists, and we all know who they are. Going for the gotcha moment, isn't it? It's like, well, so are you saying we have to cancel Christmas? I can see that headline now.
Have you now accepted that, you made a terrible mistake 3 months ago?
Ask exactly the same question. So you, as a member of the viewing public, were learning absolutely nothing whatsoever.
Right, exactly right. So, second one from you.
Right, my second one, I'm moving into the world of sport with this one, for a change, is going to be Lewis Hamilton. Now
he's been making the list quite a lot lately, funnily enough.
Oh, has he? Yes. Oh gosh, sorry, I'm not keeping up.
It's not a bad thing, because don't forget, at the end of the year we'll be doing Plank of the Year. I'm pretty sure he's going to be in the top 10.
Obviously, talking about the fashion sense, he should be every week a Plank of the Week purely for the way he dresses as well. But no, this is after the Tuscany Grand Prix at the weekend, where he wore a T-shirt saying "Arrest cops who killed Breonna Taylor." Now, she was the American lady. She was killed killed in a drugs raid on her house by American police officers.
Yes.
That is a story.
And she, I think, I mean, without wishing to suggest that she shouldn't have been murdered, I mean, she was also a drug addict, wasn't she?
Well, I mean, she possibly was. But the whole point of Lewis is the fact that, Formula One laws, like football laws, say you should not make any political statements at all whilst you are taking part in that sport. So, and now they're investigating as to whether he broke the regulations. Well, of course he broke the regulations. Of course. He was wearing a T-shirt with it on.
But the problem with the Lewis
I
Hamilton...
love how they're always investigating whether the regulations were broken.
Yeah,
it's stupid because, what they hide behind, again, there are a lot of these political causes, and I'm calling them political causes, but because they frame them in a social sense. So whether it's Extinction Rebellion or Black Lives Matter or any of these, from their perspective, people like Lewis Hamilton say it's not political. Whereas, when you look at the organisations, whether it's Extinction or the others, they are political organisations.
Yes.
No one disagrees with the actual cause.
No, absolutely.
Obviously Black Lives Matter and all that.
And of course, Breonna Taylor, what happened to her needs investigating. There needs to be an investigation.
And there probably already is an investigation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I mean, he's saying, they should be arrested. Well, they should be, obviously. But the point of this is no political messages is the rule. You've broken it on your T-shirt. As he did with Black Lives Matter, as you say, Mahyar, the calls, absolutely, we all need to think about that. But the political side of Black Lives Matter, being promoted by a multi-millionaire who flies around the world in private jets and then sort of drives the most expensive cars in the world, and he's backing a group that want to get rid of capitalism.
Yes, it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? He also, I don't know if it was the back of that T-shirt, but I saw another picture of him wearing a T-shirt, and on the back of that, it had all this stuff like, black power, trans power, gay power, student power, and somebody wrote a tweet to me and said, "Why hasn't he got horsepower there?" Because that really is what it should say. Because
clever,
which I thought was very funny.
That's what it's about.
But I mean, it's the same. Do you remember a few weeks ago? This is, I think, the last time he was on Plank of the Week, where he was on that boat with his little dog.
Yes.
And somebody was clearly filming it, right? But he said he was all alone on the boat. So presumably either he had the biggest selfie stick in the world, which was pointing halfway out into the sea, or somebody was actually filming it,
literally.
And, sometimes it's nice to get away. Get away from what? Your luxury multi-million pound lifestyle and the supermodels. Really?
Yeah.
Give me a small break.
I know.
Listen, I'm going to give it to the Ministry of Transport for my second one, not because of their hopelessness over the quarantine issue, which is one thing, it's bad enough. I mean, only Grant Shapps could have called a quarantine on the country he was actually on holiday in while he was there, which is what he did. Remember, he was in Spain on holiday, and everybody went, "Where's Grant Shapps?" "Oh, he's in Spain." "Oh, he's going to have to quarantine when he comes back then." Although I don't think he had to, because I think he was an exemption. No, this one is more about closer to home. They've decided that NO2, which is nitrogen oxide, apparently, is very high in certain parts of Britain. And in order to reduce it, they're going to have to get pollution levels down. So, you're going to do? They're not going to ban cars, not yet. They're going to reduce the speed limit on certain bits of motorway, right, up and down Britain. Now, the problem with this, and I've had it looked at by actual scientists who say that whether you're driving at 60 miles an hour or 70 miles an hour, you're still burning the petrol in the petrol tank, right? Now, unless you're in an electric car, you are still going to burn petrol, which is still going to give off NO2, which is going to be exactly the same as it would have been if you were doing 70. Now, of course, I've seen through this, and I reckon that all it is another ruse to collect more money. Because here's where they're doing it, right? They're doing it on the M6 between junctions 6 and 7 near Birmingham. So you'll be tootling along, luckily if you can get up to 70 miles an hour on that stretch. And then you won't know that it's suddenly gone down to 60, and they'll clock you, and you'll get a fine. And that's what's going to happen. They're also doing it, let's see where else they're doing it. They're doing it in between junctions 33 and 34 of the M1. I mean, what difference is it going to make? There's one stretch of motorway that's about 4 miles long. And then the M5 between junctions 1 and 2. What?
Well, you know why they're doing this, because
it's ridiculous.
They're there to keep the other side kind of quiet. It's as you said, they're going to grab the money and they're going to waste the money on some random program that say, "Oh, we're doing something with the environment." It's not going to even fix the environment. It's just that to show that they're doing something.
Has anybody explained the concept of air to them?
No.
Because
hot air.
I'm sorry,
what they're doing a lot of.
So between junctions 1 and 2 on the M5, the air is going to be so much cleaner that people want to live there. Is that what you're telling me?
But, do you
I mean,
I think pollution has got so clever now. It knows where it can and can't go.
It's like coronavirus.
Yeah, coronavirus knows. Coronavirus
doesn't go on trains. It's
yeah,
like,
it can now tell the time as well.
The great thing about coronavirus is it also doesn't affect anyone who's on a protest march.
Yeah.
You can't get it that way.
No.
As long as you're marching and you've got a placard, you won't get it.
You didn't discover supermarkets until recently.
Absolutely fine.
Yeah, no, exactly. And if they bring the curfew in, coronavirus can now tell the time, obviously.
Yes.
Wall boys, 10 o'clock, come on, we're out of here.
You made a good point about that, didn't you? I saw that.
That's me.
I know you probably don't remember every tweet you put out for obvious reasons, but he basically said, look, if they put a curfew of 10 o'clock because they want young people to stop drinking, they'll just start drinking earlier.
Yeah, start at 6.
Yeah.
Well, I will.
Yeah, exactly. And they're just, let's be honest here, they're just going to go to one another's houses, aren't they?
Exactly, which
And
apparently is worse than going to the pub.
Of course it is. It's a
I still
smaller
don't really
environment.
get that.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't get that. I mean, why is it worse in a house than it is in a pub where you don't know anyone and you don't know where they've been or who they've been with?
It doesn't
in
make
the
any
house, you know who
sense.
you're with.
Yeah. It doesn't make
My
any sense.
kids, right, have gone back to, one of them's gone to an FE college, one of them's gone back to school. The one who's gone back to school sits in a classroom with a load of kids, right, no social distancing because they don't have to, no, glass screens or anything like that. But he has to put a mask on when he goes in the corridor, right? And he's not allowed to travel to school with any other member of his class, even though he might be sitting next to them.
It's just...
Huh?
Well, it's like the whole Christmas dinner thing, isn't it? I mean, you're okay to go and have Christmas dinner with your family and friends, provided you take a shotgun and a grouse.
Yeah.
You're fine.
Can you imagine Christmas Day, though? Some bloke knocking on the door to see how many people are in the house.
Can you imagine? You imagine what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what my husband's
that'll
doing.
go well.
Yeah, exactly. So
Right.
yeah. Just don't load the shotgun, though, people. By the way, it's dangerous on Christmas
we're not
Day.
recommending that at all. Number 3 for
Well,
you,
that's the
Mike.
thing. So that reminds me, a third one, still kind of related. The COVID Marshals, or as I call them, Boris's stormtroopers.
Yes.
I don't understand the point of them because they're going to get paid apparently about £30,000 a year. They're going to go around with no real powers. They're just going to tell people off.
Yeah.
These were the kids who had, like, when they were obviously younger, they were like control freaks, so they had some issues and all that.
Yeah.
So they love to like grasp people out and all that. So it's going to be quite weird because if they come to me at a pub, because they're not fully trained, then like this is the sort of thing that kind of like policing. You need some sort of training. It's not easy to do. They're going to go around. They're going to have to guess how big the groups are, especially if you're standing outside the pub.
How do you tell who's in what group?
And all I have to do is just tell my couple of my friends walk away for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
We can see them. They wear like high-vis jackets.
I was with somebody on the phone the other day who rang in, and they said he's very straightforward. You're not allowed to go out in more than a group of 6. I said, well, what if there's say 10 of you, and you arrive at the pub, and 5 of you go and sit over there, and the other 5 go and sit over there?
Yep.
Are they breaking the law? No. But when they are standing outside the pub as a group of 10, they are breaking the law.
That's right.
It's ridiculous. I mean, I was at a lunch last week. 7 of us, right? But it's quite a small restaurant over in West London. And there was a table of 4 and a table of 3, right next to each other.
Yeah.
We were obviously together, but I don't see how we couldn't do that even now. You could still do it because it's 3 and 4.
Yeah.
But it's actually 7.
Yeah.
Yep. But again, I went to the pub yesterday, Westminster.
You went to a pub. I mean, that must be a rare outing for you.
Yeah, nothing happened. No, it's again.
Nothing happened.
Nothing.
What were you expecting?
Nothing happened.
What were you expecting? I mean, it's now like you're expecting to get arrested every time you go out.
Yeah, nothing. Well, yeah, but no, it's.
I managed to make it home safe.
I think it's
without
just a
chucked
gimmick.
in the
It's just a gimmick, just like these face masks, like with supermarkets. They're not really enforcing it. A lot of shops
No,
don't
they're
enforce.
not.
Uber drivers are not really enforcing
Are
it.
they not?
No,
I mean, I haven't. Since I was in an Uber and I wore one, I haven't used them again because
a lot of them don't
I
enforce
don't
it.
want to sit in a
If you
car.
just
like
ask
that.
them,
In
like-
fact, my son was up here the other week and we went over to Aldgate for dinner, and I said, you know what? Let's just drive because I wasn't going to drink, so I was with my son. And so we just drove over there and parked in a car park about sort of 5 minutes walk away, rather than sitting, because I thought I don't want to sit in a taxi with a mask on, half an hour there, half an hour back. You know.
See, I'm going to the gym every morning. No masks.
Really?
Sweaty. Yeah, it's a spinning gym. Sort of like we're all in there together.
Some gyms seem to have mask wearing as a necessity, and others don't.
You can't not when you're not in a spinning gym. Maybe if you're doing weights, you can. I mean, I know we're going off the track here, but the sort of people that are going to be these marshals, you just know what they're going to be like, don't they? They are going to be officious.
They're getting paid quite well as well, aren't they?
30 grand. I didn't know they were getting paid. I thought you had to volunteer.
So you're going to have Ed Miliband doing it. You're going to have Priti Patel doing it.
Yeah.
Don't eat that bacon sandwich like that. Here's, I'll show you how to eat a bacon sandwich.
Don't.
Good idea. Yeah.
God, blimey. That's a good one, though. I think it's very COVID sort of tastic,
It is,
isn't
but
it?
what else is
Well,
everyone
there's no-
talking
Well,
That's
about?
true. It's
I
very true.
know.
And also, everyone, I think, now is at that point. I was talking to Kevin and son about this a little while ago. people are just fed up now.
Yeah.
There's more and more people
Yeah.
who don't actually care anymore.
Yeah.
And they've had enough.
I must admit, I'm doing everything I have to do. I'm sticking by the rules. I'm wearing a mask when I have to wear a mask. But part of me, because you know that there is no joined up thinking behind it, as you said, like, well, let's just think of a number and go with that one. It doesn't. So part of you, and everyone must be thinking the same now. It's like, well, it's all getting a bit silly. And I don't know anyone that's going, oh no, well, we're going to have to cancel Christmas dinner with the family because, we can't have, Nan and Grandad round. And it's like, everyone's going to do it.
Been affected by it because his two daughters, twins, were supposed to have their 30th birthday party like next week.
Yeah.
And they've had to cancel it. Oh. Because there's nothing, if you're in that kind of situation, there's nothing you can do, which is awful.
It's so sad. That's why it's like blaming all the youngsters. I feel sorry for youngsters.
Well, they told them to go out. And
and you're missing out on so much of what being young is about.
Right.
I mean, it's all right for us, we go and have a cup of tea, but, you're not...
I know, I was out nearly every day last week, I was exhausted.
You're not young.
I can't do it anymore. I was like, what? I somehow messed up the calendar, I accepted all these invitations at different times and then went, oh God, there's one after the other.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go, have you done your third? Sorry, I'm sorry. Well, get on with it, will you? We haven't got all
I
day.
don't think you can talk to me about that.
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Right, but he's got a pub to go to, he's young.
This is
right,
also
I've got
to be
big...
used for hitting people if they get out of line.
There's so many planks I've actually got a book for, but I'm going to go for, I know this is another one that I think I've done before,
That's
the
all right.
BBC.
Doesn't matter. The BBC regular appearances.
And this
why
is,
wouldn't they?
And this is the one that's really got me speaking as of a lady of a certain age, which you may have noticed. Sue Barker.
Yes.
And A Question of Sport.
Yes.
And the fact that she has been let go, I think the BBC put it, because they want to revamp it, along with who is it? Dawson and Phil Tufnell, isn't it?
Yeah,
so
Matt Dawson, Phil Tufnell.
Matt Dawson,
Don't revamp it. If you're going to do something like that, why don't you just invent a new show? Yep. It's been on the air with her for 24 years.
She's done it for 24 years. The show is 50 years old.
I seem to remember watching it before she did it. When I can't remember who it was that was in charge of it, but it was that rugby player who had
Bill
one.
Bowman.
It was Bill Bowman was one of the captains, but before him there was. I mean, I watched it back in the 70s probably, right, when it was funny. But I haven't watched it. I don't think I've watched it this century.
For a long time.
I don't think I've watched it this century.
No, I haven't. But the point of revamping it, and the BBC are going out for that young, trendy audience,
which doesn't exist, by the way. They're all watching mine on YouTube.
Yeah, they're watching him on YouTube. I mean, they're not going to start watching A Question of Sport, are they?
They're really not.
It's just weird. Their priorities are so wrong. The whole organisation, they're spending all this money on like this diversity program.
100 million. For
100 million,
It's a lot. And we complain about like Gary Lineker's like salaries and all that. But 100 million on just one random program that we don't even know what the outcome's going to be.
I know.
They got this new boss who talks, says all the good things, we're going to reform and all this sort of stuff. But I think it's all going to be gimmicks again. Like some of these pay cuts and some of the kind of removal.
Yeah.
It's just a bit
Well, he came
weird.
out and said, did he not, that they couldn't any longer be political on Twitter and social media.
Yeah, but
except for Gary Lineker.
Except for Gary Lineker.
But Gary Lineker's fine. And you go, what?
I know.
How does that work?
Well, and talking to Mr. Lineker, who I do think is quite amusing sometimes, it has to be said. I mean, Sue, bless her, 64, she's been given the elbow. Gary Lineker, £1.74 million a year. Yeah. He's 60 in a few weeks' time. Yeah.
Well, it doesn't mean you should get rid of him.
No, he doesn't. I'm fighting for our age group here, Mike. I'm all for the middle-aged woman, and we're actually going to start marching, etc., etc.
Me too.
With placards. But I mean, what's the difference between a middle-aged woman and a middle-aged man?
Well, no difference.
None.
No.
I mean, Sue Barker wasn't even on that much money.
Well, exactly right. Mind you, it turns out that their new diversity program is going really well because a lot of white women now seem to be getting paid almost as much as all the white men.
The white men, yeah.
So I don't think that's what diversity means.
No. Well,
the new pay rises have just come out, haven't they?
Yeah, no, that's all right. Out today, literally, and suddenly because they have spotted the fact that they pay men a lot more than women, we're gonna, as a token gesture, virtue signalling.
Just want to say, I just realised we were talking about a lot of other planks, a lot of like important ones, like the COVID, government. This got so heated about the BBC that compared to the others.
Yeah.
You know what gets me? Because obviously they are discriminating against my age group, and the only time they care about older females is when they're nicking the free licence off them.
Yes.
That's what really annoys me. They are going to criminalise my bloody mum.
And that is the worst part of all of it that they're doing, right? That is the worst bit of all of it. Because they don't need to.
Yeah.
They could easily cover that some other way. I went on by the weekend, just for the hell of it. Shows you how boring I am. I literally went on the BBC's opportunities jobs page, right? There are thousands of jobs in the BBC which are currently on offer. Now, this is an organisation that's supposed to be saving money.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be cutting back.
Yeah.
One of them was in New York. as rights manager for BBC Worldwide, so selling advertising for the BBC.
You do realise you haven't applied, have you, Mike?
Well, I thought
because
about
you
it.
have got Bob open.
Well, I've got no
open.
chance.
No, absolutely.
I mean, I'm the wrong
being
colour,
white, being
the wrong
male,
sex.
being
Go
old.
with the COVID, Marshals, easier.
Yeah, you may be right. Absolutely. Do you think I'd get one of those? Yeah. Maybe that's the same problem though. Maybe they're not looking for people like me. You know, God knows. Now, my final one is RADA, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts.
He did actually go theatrical then.
RADA.
Did you notice? RADA.
RADA. You have to say it like that. You can't say it. I mean, if you're like Northern, you can't say RADA. You have to say RADA.
RADA.
You know, because it's awfully posh, and that's where you go if you wish to be like, old what's his name, Mark Rylance.
Ew, okay.
Did you know that that's not his real name? Actually, he changed it to make it sound a little bit more exotic.
Well, Mark isn't that exotic though, is
Rylance, though. He's also, in fact, I almost made him and a bunch of other people planks for signing a letter about Extinction Rebellion. And actually, Robert Colville wrote a great tweet about it because he went just in time to prove that Extinction Rebellion doesn't just represent a lot of elitist white middle class people. And it's all like Jolyon Moron, Sir Mark Rylance, what's her name, Emma Kennedy, have all signed this piece of paper saying that, they're very much in support of Extinction Rebellion. Absolute idiots. Anyway, but no, RADA, the students at RADA, who are all terribly well to do, you don't get many from Bermondsey going there, do you know what I mean? Not many from Bethnal Green,
No.
And anyway, they've decided that they don't like George Bernard Shaw, who happens to be one of the great sort of playwrights of the age. I mean, no matter what you may think of his stuff, if you don't like it, he wrote Pygmalion, which turned into My Fair Lady. Incredibly clever Irish guy who once said something so funny that I've used it a few times, where he sent 2 tickets, I think, to Winston Churchill for one of his opening night plays and said, please bring a friend if you have one. Winston Churchill came back with, I can't make it, but I'll come to the second night if there is one, which I thought was great. One of those great sort of British exchanges, Anyway, they have a theatre at RADA, which is called the George Bernard Shaw Theatre. But they've decided that they want to change the name, even though he's one of the sort of godfathers of plays, of art, of the arts, of literature, right? Apparently, they found out that he was a bit of a supporter of eugenics, back in the day. But I mean, again, it's part of, by me saying this does not mean, by the way, just in case anybody's wondering, doesn't mean I support eugenics.
Just to clarify.
But, it's about the fact that he lived in a certain time. He wrote certain sort of academic papers, and he, like lots of other people in those days, believed in lots of things, and they think he might be a bit of a racist. They're talking about how he might have, I love it, right? He might have been a bit of a racist. He had apparently been, had made noises about Hitler, that he, was vaguely in support of Hitler at some point or other.
Vaguely in support of?
Well, this is what they're saying, because they found bits of writings which they say, well, look here, look over there. And you just think, just leave it alone, will you? What's wrong with you? Why on earth are you doing this? Why are you tearing down the culture that we have? And what are you going to rename the theatre? What are you going to call it?
What next?
Haven't they done away with Darwin at one point? Not RADA.
No, they want to.
Isn't Darwin...
the Natural History Museum, which has a huge statue of Darwin right in the foyer as you go in.
He's a bit iffy, isn't he?
Well, I mean, the thing is, he could have been a bit of a racist,
Right.
Even though he actually wrote The Origin of the Species, discovered actually what plants and animals and all sorts of things actually behaved like, and was a great kind of father of modern natural history. We can't have his name associated with the museum. Same as the bloke who started the British Museum. They've got rid of him as well, because he might have,
They're all blokes, so maybe there's actually a good point getting rid of all you lot.
So George Bernard Shaw Theatre is probably going to be no more. So if you want to go there before...
What are they going to call it in Snowflake Central?
Maybe they'll call it after, what do you call them? Diversity, the old dance troupe.
I quite like that. I quite like Ashley Banjo.
The Diversity Theatre.
Diversity,
Blimey. Anyway, so there's the 9 then. So we've got...
that went quick.
We've got to whittle it down, right? So why don't I pick my favourite one of yours? So you've got... What are your 3?
Got Tony Blair and John Major.
Yeah.
Then we've got the COVID Marshals.
Yes.
And Kay Burley. I know what you're going to go for.
I think it's the COVID Marshals, isn't it? It's got to be the COVID Marshals.
Even though they don't actually exist at the moment.
Well, no, they've been seen.
Oh,
I've seen them. I've been sent pictures from all over Britain of people with the high vis jacket on.
Actually, now you mention it. There was one when we were down in Cornwall, but they were just saying, this way
but
to
these
the
ones are actually
museum.
wearing
Yeah.
wording on the back which says something like COVID-19 officer
Sounds
or
like a
something
group,
like that.
don't they?
Oh yeah.
What were
So,
your?
so do you want to pick Dawn's then?
Right, mine were BBC.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm just going to get my glasses on again and refer to my notes. Let me see. The BBC, we had Lewis Hamilton.
Lewis
Thank you very
Hamilton.
much for remembering that
Yeah.
one. And Kit Malthouse.
Oh, yes.
Ooh, I'm going to go with Kit.
Yeah, I think that's a good
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
because Lewis is normal. He always
Yeah.
does that anyway. He's
I
just-
mean, Kit
he's
Pretty,
regular.
Ed Miliband. I mean,
Yeah,
they're
all of them, yeah.
that. But I mean, we'll go with Kit, shall
All
we?
right, let's go with
Kit.
Considering he's in charge of crime.
Yes. This is in charge of crime, encouraging people to actually do something which might lead to a crime. Well done.
Yeah.
Mine are Philip Green, the Department of Transport, and RADA.
RADA.
What would you choose my one, Dawn?
Philip Green, RADA.
RADA.
Oh, not that one again?
Department of Transport for the motorways.
Transport. I think I'm going to go for the Department of Transport.
Oh, I like that.
Because it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
It is.
Because it's just like one junction. What's the point?
It's literally like saying you can't, if you walk out of this room here, go that way around the back of the chairs, because the air in the middle of the room is not as good as the air is over there.
But that's what they are doing in
But that's
buildings. I
actually-
mean, you might have noticed that, but they
This
are
is the
doing
first
that.
time all three planks are government, basically.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Government, yeah. Let's just nominate the
Department
government.
of Transport, Department of Transport, COVID Marshals, and Kit Malthouse.
Did we vote on?
Well,
We need a bigger plank.
I mean, it's up to you guys now what we do, because I would be happy for any of those three to win. I mean, I suppose the Department of Transport's not COVID related.
No, the
No,
other two,
that's true.
are linked, aren't they?
I like my Marshals.
You like the Marshals? I'd be happy with the Marshals as number one.
They deserve it.
I think it's a fine line between people that would grass up their own next door neighbours
Yeah.
and the Marshals.
Yeah, it's very close. Yeah.
Well, the Marshals, by definition, are grasses, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because they're going out looking
Yeah.
for things to find
And I
fault
bet
with.
Kit Malthouse will be first in the line to volunteer.
Yeah.
So let's,
Well, we could make him number two, make them number one.
Let's go for the Marshals.
And Department of
then, shall we?
Transport, number three.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds
you
all right.
come
So
last.
here we.
Yeah.
This is now the first time I get to do this. Plank of the week is the COVID Marshals, and that remains, I would think, a pretty good choice for this week. Kit Malthouse coming in a very close second. I'm not actually going to send this to any COVID Marshals, because there might be a law against that. But thank you, Dawn
You have to
Neesom.
disinfect it.
I would. Thank you, Dawn Neesom. Thank you, Tousi. We'll see you next week.